affordable units out here in Hawaii, is it exactly what you need or is it too good to be true? We're gonna cover everything that you need to know so you can understand why they're even in place and whether it's even a good fit for you and your family. So stick around to get all the details. See you on the other side. What's going on, guys? Patrick here from PatrickLawrenRealty.com, and in this video, we're going to cover everything that you need to know about these affordable housing units. Now, you may have seen some of these properties. Maybe it's in Ewa, Kapolei, or even in some of the luxurious condos out in Ward Village. Now, the key thing you'll see on there is that the price tag seems too good to be true. And you might also see in the description, it would say something along the lines of need to be approved via HHFDC or AMI median income. All these things are probably going over your head. So in this video, we're gonna cover all of that. We're also gonna cover the pros and cons of these affordable units and also the fine print that might knock these out for you when it comes to an option. So with that being said, before we jump into it, if this is your first time here, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Patrick Long. I'm a licensed agent out here in Hawaii and have been for nearly a decade, helping buyers, sellers, and investors with their real estate needs. So if you guys have any questions, I've got some boots on the ground. Feel free to reach out to me. Got my contact information right here, or you can directly DM me on any of my social media platforms. With that being said, let's jump right into these affordable housing units out here in Hawaii and why it may or may not be a good fit for you. Now, the first thing we're gonna go over is what are these affordable housing units and why are they even in place? Well, these affordable housing units, what you'll generally see is that they seem to be a really nice property and the price is significantly lower than you would see that property sold just down the street. That's a similar square footage, renovation, maybe even in the same building. Now, what are these and why are they in place? Well, developers generally get tax breaks. Maybe they get a break on zoning on what they're building. If they want to build that building a little bit higher, the state will allow them to do that if they hypothetically assist with the housing crisis that we have out here by offering affordable housing units. And generally, it's going to be between 10 to 20% of that building that are going to sell with affordable housing prices. But there's a catch, and we'll get into that. But generally what you're gonna see is in a building for that exact unit, let's call it a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, it might be listed for $700,000 at market price. And then you'll see another one that's exactly the same that's listed at $500,000 or $550,000, but this is an affordable housing unit. So we're gonna explain how you can qualify for this and also why there's such a large delta and what the catch is. So that's generally what these affordable housing units are. Again, you'll find them across the island. You're generally gonna wanna look for that HHFDC or something along the lines of qualified based on AMI. And you're gonna find them usually in Ewa, Ho'opili, you'll find them in parts of Kapolei, as well as in the luxurious neighborhood in Waikiki or in Honolulu known as Ward Village. Now let's go over the pros and the cons of this affordable housing program. The first pro and obvious one is gonna be a lower price. So like I mentioned before, generally these developers, for them to get these tax breaks or kind of be able to bend the rules when it comes to how big they can make their development, they are going to have to sell or essentially offer up usually about 20% of the units in that building to be affordable housing. So you might have that exact same unit listed at $700,000 that's gonna say market price, and then you're gonna have these affordable housing that's gonna be significantly lower, like $500,000 or $550,000. So that's a huge pro that it's a much lower down payment that's gonna be needed and a much lower monthly payment that's gonna be needed for that exact unit at a huge discount than market price. The second pro is at that lower price, you're also gonna have access, generally, sometimes they don't allow access, but generally you're gonna have access to high-end amenities. So a lot of these affordable housing units are gonna be in newer developments. And a lot of these newer developments have some stellar amenities, as you can see in some of these videos right here. These are just some of the properties that we've seen over in Ward Village that have some of the craziest amenities I've ever come across. And if you buy an affordable unit in these multi-luxurious condo buildings, you're gonna have access to those amenities. So that is a huge pro. The third pro would be having access to prime location. So like I said before, some of the most desirable areas, Ward Village, also Ewa and Kapolei are very desirable as well, but they're gonna be in newer constructed areas in very prime locations. So you're gonna have access to prime locations at an affordable price. The fourth pro would be it helps first-time homebuyers get into the market. Now we'll get into some of the cons on why I don't think that's the best option, but it does allow somebody that if they want to live in a specific area, have a certain lifestyle that they want that's maybe a little bit higher than what they can afford, they can actually get into the market when it comes to real estate, make some money with some equity. But again, we'll get into the details of why Sometimes they're going to take some money out of your pocket, but it allows you to get into the market, get into a nice building, nice area at an affordable price. And the last pro will be newer units. They're only offering these affordable housing units, not in fixer-uppers, not in properties that are basically 30 years old. They're generally going to be properties that are 10, 5, or maybe even brand new. So they're generally going to be fully renovated already, don't need a lot of work or any work at all. So you're going to have access, again, at an affordable price in a nice area and a nice building, and also doesn't need any work, pretty much brand new. Okay, so those are the pros. Let's go into the cons. And these are very important because my theory and my concept when it comes to real estate is, yes, real estate helps solve a couple things. Number one, it puts a roof over your head. But also for that high cost of living when it comes to purchasing a home compared to renting a home, the trade-off is building equity and having a nest egg and having real estate as a vehicle for you to build wealth. Now, with these affordable units, there are some catches that do kind of curb that concept. So let's jump into that right now. So the first one is called shared equity. Now, how does this work? Again, the developers are giving you a break on the price, but they're going to make their money on the back end. So what they basically do is they give you the property, let's say at $400,000, you hold on to it for a while, couple years, and then you basically sell the property and make the delta. So let's say that you bought it for $400,000, it's now worth $500,000, you have $100,000 of equity. Now, of course, there's going to be expenses to sell that property, seller's commission, buyer's commission, as well as closing costs. But whatever's left over, which is going to be your equity, generally you need to give a percentage of that equity back to the developer. That could be as little as 10, 20%, but generally I see it's usually between 20 and 30%. So that's something that you've got not only agents dipping into your pocket of your equity or closing costs from escrow, title, insurance, but you're also going to have the developer dig into your equity when you're selling the property because they're saying, hey, we give you a good price on the front end, but we need to get paid back on the back end. The second con is going to be controlled price appreciation. So generally, depending on the program that you actually find yourself in with these affordable housing, they may only allow you to sell it so high. And the reason why they do this, similar to, let's say, rent control, these are essentially price controls. And I can understand that they don't want prices to go too high so they can keep those units affordable for the next buyer who wants to buy that unit. But again, from a real estate standpoint and why we buy real estate to build wealth and for appreciation, it's putting a downward pressure on what you can actually juice from that property and actually build wealth with. Because if you buy the property for $400 and you want to sell it, let's say 3 or 4 years later, and they basically put a rule on there saying, every year that you want to sell it, we're only going to allow you to appreciate that property, not by what's happening in the market, but what we say that it can go up, which is it's only can go up 3% every single year, or sometimes it's as low as 2%, which again, I can understand because they want to have these affordable housing units to continue generally for about 10 years of when they start it, but it kind of takes away the benefit of real estate where you can have some markets where it goes up 10 or 15% in 1 year. Generally, we see 4 to 10% every single year in the open market, but they're putting a downward pressure saying that you can only increase the price if you're going to sell it by, let's say, 2 or 3% every single year. So it really takes away what I find the big advantage of real estate is appreciation by saying, I'm going to tell you how much you can appreciate by, not the open market. So that's kind of a huge con for me because real estate can be extremely lucrative, especially when you have a booming market, but just something to keep in mind. The third con is primary residence requirement. Now, again, for affordable housing, the mindset is that we're allowing somebody to purchase this property at a good price and they have to use it as their primary residence, which makes sense. You don't want investors coming in, buying these things up at dimes on the dollar and then renting them out. And again, just taking houses away from the local community. But the downside to that is, again, the benefit to real estate is generally you can buy a property, use it as your primary residence, live in it for a while, build some equity, and then maybe rent it out and buy another property and slowly build a portfolio. With these units, you cannot do that. It has to be your primary residence the whole time that you live there. Doesn't matter if it's a year, doesn't matter if it's 3 years. Generally, it has to be your primary residence the entire time that you live there. So essentially, you're just paying to own the property and you can't leverage it as an investment property later in the future. And again, not a big fan of that because I like the idea of buying a property, living in it, fix it up, increase the equity, then throw a renter in there, buy another property, and build a real estate portfolio. The next con is the resale eligibility with that keyword AMI. Now, AMI stands for Area Median Income. Now, basically the rules and regulations that are put in place is that if you want to buy one of these affordable housing units, you need to be in a certain pool of buyers that is in the AMI. Now, again, the AMI specific for Honolulu, which might blow your mind, is $129,000. So for affordable housing, you need to make sure that you're not making any more money than usually about $130,000 to $150,000, which is kind of crazy to claim that as affordable housing. Now, again, this is important for you when you want to buy the house, but more important, when you are looking to sell the property, you're not able to sell it to the open market, whether that's somebody who's doing very well in life, someone who's maybe just be able to get through, or somebody who's an investor, which again, having it to the open market allows you to appreciate it. Whereas as we discussed, they usually put a pressure down on what it can actually appreciate by, but you can only sell it to other buyers who also qualify based on this program. Now, again, you can see on the screen right here, this gives you a breakdown more or less of what the AMI is out here, how much you would have to make sure you don't make any more of if you're a single person, 2-person family, or a 3-person household. Now, that AMI can be 80% of the AMI, it could be up to 120% of the AMI. It just really depends on each project. But the biggest thing to take away from this information is that you have to qualify for that. And when you sell it, you can only sell it to buyers who qualify for that same program and have a similar income, which again, dwindles the amount of buyers and also puts downward pressure on what you can allow it to appreciate by if there isn't already some being put down by the developer or the DPP. The next con is the buyback period. So generally when they do these programs, it's a 10-year period that you have to stay within these rules. So maybe you buy it the first year and you only live in it for 3 or 5 years, you're still within those rules that you have to facilitate. It has to be owner occupied the whole time you're there. You can't rent it out. You can only sell it to other people who approved by that program. There might be shared equity that you have to give back to the developer if you sell within those 10 years. And also the appreciation that it can have within that period that they have, it can only go up so much. So those are important things to understand, because if you're looking to get into an affordable unit, the best thing that I would suggest is that if it's towards the end of those 10 years, then it could be beneficial. Because if you get outside of that 10-year period, when they started the affordable program, it doesn't reset every single time a new buyer comes. If you actually buy it by the end of that 10-year period and you get outside of this bunch of ceiling of rules, well, then you could potentially buy it at an affordable price and then also see a boom in the value of that property because you got it at an affordable price that had downward pressure of what it could actually appreciate by. But as soon as you get past those 10 years, you'll see that those value of those properties will go right to match the market price properties, which have probably been going up like this, and these have been pressured down. But as soon as you get outside those 10 years, you'll see it match up, and probably that delta of that equity, well, you'll actually have access to. But again, you got to read the fine print. But if you're going to get in these affordable housing units, I think the person who's going to benefit the most is the person who's purchasing it just at the end of that 10-year buyback period. Now, on top of that buyback period, another item to keep in mind is that sometimes these developers, when you're looking to sell the unit, they've got, again, all these rules, right? Shared equity, putting downward pressure. They have usually the right to buy the property from you first. They have the first right of refusal. So that's another kind of catch, is you don't get to even have access not only to the open market, maybe you don't even have access to the buyers that qualify, but they're going to say, we have the first right of refusal. If we want to buy it at those prices that we've kind of controlled, we have the right to do so. And the last con, and again, why I love real estate, because you can actually leverage it. But again, these programs limit that, is your loan limitations, not only for purchasing the property, but also if you want to pull equity out of the property. So I have a video right here that goes over how you can leverage a HELOC to really ramp up your portfolio when you're building equity in a property. You pull cash out of it, keep it, don't sell it, go fix up another one, and rinse and repeat that process. With these affordable housing programs, you generally cannot do a HELOC, you cannot refinance generally. There's just a lot more stipulations and rules. Again, link up with your lender or real estate like myself to kind of have a better understanding of what your options are once you actually get in the unit for leveraging that real estate to build a portfolio. All right, guys, well, that pretty much breaks down all the pros and cons of these affordable housing units. If you guys have any more questions about these affordable housing units or anything when it comes to real estate out here in Hawaii, feel free to reach out to me. I got my contact information right here, or you can directly DM me on any of my social media platforms. And if you got any value out of this content, do me a huge favor, smash that like button, as well as click the subscribe and notification bell so you get notified whenever I drop videos just like this. And if you have any input about these affordable housing units, do you think they're actually helping the community? Do you think that's actually a reality, that these are actually affordable and creating housing for people who actually need it? Or do you think it's kind of a money grab for developers who are just trying to find tax breaks? Put it in the comment section down below. All right, guys, so that pretty much wraps it up. I'm Patrick Longley. Hope you guys have a beautiful day. I'll talk to you soon. Aloha.